Hey everybody, welcome back. Thank you again for joining us. We are on our way to another trip, this time to Seattle, Washington. Since we both live in the San Francisco area, it's pretty easy for us to just hop on BART and head on over to the San Francisco airport. So after having our morning coffee and taking a little nap, we said goodbye to San Francisco and hello to snowy Seattle. After touching down, we called an Uber and headed over to Safeway so we could buy some ingredients to make our lunches for the week. After that, we headed over to Marination, which is an Asian fusion restaurant on the Seattle waterfront. After settling into our Airbnb, we wanted to grab a quick bite, so we ended up at a Vietnamese restaurant called Hong Dong.
It's 33 degrees outside right now.
We were just saying it feels a lot warmer than 33 degrees, but it's probably because I have Heat Tech by Uniqlo. Sponsored. Not sponsored.
Please sponsor.
But no, it's not even that bad. The thing with like Daly City in San Francisco is that it's windy, so it makes it super cold, but I'm probably talking prematurely because it's supposed to snow tomorrow.
Day 2, and we were greeted with the long-awaited but much-anticipated snowstorm. Our first stop was the Chihuly Glass and Gardens, which is a glass-blowing exhibit featuring some sculptures. They were so beautiful, and they reflected their colors off of the walls, which created this kaleidoscopic effect, and that was totally memorable. We spent the rest of our time at the gift shop. What kept us there for most of the time was that Josh found a Rubik's robot puzzle, where it starts off as a cube and unfolds into a robot and vice versa. He ended up buying one for himself, and it kept him busy for the rest of the vacation. We then headed over to the Museum of Pop Culture, also known as Mopop. There were so many fun exhibits to see, such as one dedicated to Jimi Hendrix, as well as one dedicated to making sci-fi movies. There were lots of displays to look around at, and our favorite and most memorable was probably the horror exhibit, where we got to see props used in horror movies and TV series, such as Walking Dead. We got to walk into a throng of dead bodies, as well as climb into a coffin, and there was also a sound lab exhibit where we got to play with musical instruments and make our own beats. Right next door was the Space Needle. We weren't sure if it was worth the trip up, but we decided to try anyway. On the elevator ride up, you could see all of the city disappearing into the fog above us, and once we got up top, all the windows were covered in snow. Fun fact: 62,962,939 people have visited this attraction. Someone ended up scrubbing off the snow from the windows, and luckily we were able to get a glimpse of the night skyline. For dinner, we walked a couple blocks over to Mantra Thai, where I got some pumpkin curry and Josh got some crispy noodles. It was spicy but delicious, and it definitely warmed us up.
Day 3, and we're hopping on to bus 36, which is close to our Airbnb, heading on over to Pike's Place Market. Once we got to downtown, we headed on over to the first Starbucks store where I bought a couple thermoses for my mom. Then we headed a couple doors down to Piroshki, which is a bakery that serves Russian and Ukrainian puff pastries. After eating our piroshkis, we walked around the market and stopped by a few vendors and shops, one of which had a bunch of board games and a large Wolverine statue that looked like it was entering the shop. And of course, no Seattle trip is complete if you do not visit the famous gum wall. It was pretty cool, but in my opinion, it was also pretty disgusting. Fortunately, the snow wasn't coming down too bad, which gave us a chance to walk along the Seattle waterfront. We saw some businesses advertising that they were still open despite the bad weather, and it was just a really beautiful walk, seeing everything covered in some fresh powder. Now it's time to head back to the Space Needle for round 2. This time on our way up, we were able to see quite a bit. We saw some lakes, the mountains, buildings topped with snow. The sun was still out, so we were able to see blue skies and the puffy white clouds. It was just a really beautiful trip up. When we got to the top, we whipped out our sandwiches and enjoyed a really late lunch while watching the sunset through now clear windows. After we finished our sandwiches and taking one last look at the night view of the city, we headed back down to civilization. Since the snow came down pretty good on this day, a lot of the restaurants and businesses were closed early. Luckily, we found ourselves at Lola's, which was a Greek-influenced restaurant that served up some locally sourced food. How you feeling?
Good. It's brisk today. It's crisp.
Like Rice Krispies.
Yep.
No beanie, no weenie. Okay, we're here. Later.
Day 4, and we started it off with a coffee at the Starbucks Reserve and Roastery. This place was so cool because we got to see beans being roasted right in the building, as well as learn about the history of Starbucks. We also got to try a nitro coffee, and Jesh got this whiskey barrel-aged cold brew coffee, which he ended up buying a bag for himself afterwards. Thanks to one of the employees at the Chihuly Glass and Gardens, we were hooked up with complimentary passes to the Pacific Science Center. Here's an acrobat swinging from the ceiling, and he has to pull the rope to make it flip. Ready, go. Oh, it's up. Keep it going, keep it going. Keep it going. Oh, it's getting ready. It's getting higher. Yeah, you did it. We are with space nutritionist Joshua Aveno. Dr. Aveno.
So here on the right, we have the foods that are strongest in flavor in space, in the middle, easiest to grow. Now on the far left button illustrates the ones with least amount of iron, because too much iron will mess up our bodies.
If we hit all three.
It's the strongest flavor, the easiest to grow, and that has the right nutrients. We will be eating a diet of radishes, tomatoes, and strawberries. Fruit salad. Triceratops. T-Rex. Who wins?
Who wins at that chomping battle? After learning about space, we traveled back in time to the dinosaur exhibit. It was very intricately decorated with a bunch of big dinosaurs, teeth, and all of that. Jesh had fun with this oversized table display that you could actually sit on. Then we went over to the butterfly exhibit, which was my favorite. There were these two blue and black butterflies that kept frequenting us, and luckily we were able to get them on camera. To escape the snow, we had dinner at a 24-hour open diner called 5 Point Cafe. Then we attempted to make the trek home on transit. Unfortunately, our bus got caught in the snow trying to go up a hill, so we had to wait for the next bus. Luckily, we made it home safely.
It's day 5 and we're getting ready to make our trek through last night's snow, get to the airport, and head on over to San Francisco. We honestly did not realize how close our Airbnb was to the airport. It actually only took us a little over 30 minutes to get there using bus and light rail. When we got to the light rail station, I was actually pretty surprised to see that they had guide strips which helped guide us from the intersection on over towards the train tracks. While we were on the light rail, I thought it was pretty cool to see all the buildings and trees that we passed covered in snow. As usual, when we fly, we went over to ask for assistance with finding our gates. Now, this process does usually take a little bit of time, but this time it took a little bit longer since the airport was extra crowded with all the flights being delayed or canceled the day before. Our flight actually did not board until an hour later than it was scheduled to, and even after that, we were waiting on the plane for a little over 2.5 hours before we actually took off. 3 hours later, we took off and were Bay Area bound. Alright everybody, well thank you for watching our video about our trip to Seattle. As you saw, it was pretty snowy and Seattle's usually known for its rain. After talking to a few of the locals, a lot of them were saying that Seattle only gets snow like that about every 10 to 15 years. So even though we weren't able to do some of the activities we planned, like our harbor tour, it was still cool to experience this uncommon occasion. occasion, phenomenon, whatever it's called.
Yeah, even though it was still kind of hard to get around and it took a little bit of getting used to, I personally loved the snow and I thought it was my favorite part of the trip, honestly.
Even though it was snowing, like Madison was saying, it was kind of hard to get around. My favorite part was still walking around Pike's Place, just hopping into the different shops. I think part of what was cool about it snowing was that it wasn't too crowded, so there wasn't a long line at the different places we were going.
One thing to note that we didn't add in the voiceover is that Chihuly actually has an accessible audio tour. As soon as you sign into their Wi-Fi, their login page directly leads you to that audio tour, so that's one thing to keep in mind if you're looking for an accessible way to experience the glass blowing exhibit. Also, they have little mini displays of some of the sculptures at the gift shops, so you can have a tactile experience as well.
Just don't go waving your hands everywhere.
Yeah, be very careful.
It was a fun trip, a nice little getaway. We do want to go back in the summertime so we can see what else Seattle has to offer.
Thank you for watching this video. We hope to see you in the next one.
Laters.
The songs featured in this video are made by Ark Patrol, who is originally from Seattle. If you'd like to check them out, their socials are listed below.